Tariffs, taxes levied on imported goods, have been a fixture of international trade for centuries. Governments impose tariffs for a variety of reasons. These include protecting domestic industries from foreign competition, raising revenue, and influencing the behavior of trading partners. While tariffs can provide short-term benefits, they often come at a cost. These costs include higher prices for consumers, reduced efficiency, and retaliation from trading partners. The global trade landscape is currently witnessing a resurgence of tariffs. This revival is driven by factors such as rising economic nationalism and concerns about climate change. Understanding the real-world impact of tariffs is crucial for policymakers, businesses, and consumers alike. The US-China trade war, the EU's proposed carbon border adjustment mechanism, and India's electronics tariffs offer valuable case studies for examining the multifaceted effects of tariffs. By analyzing these cases, we can gain insights into the economic implications of tariffs. These include their impact on consumer costs, trade diversion, and overall economic growth. The US-China trade war, initiated in 2018, has been one of the most significant trade disputes in recent history. The US imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. These tariffs targeted a wide range of products, from steel and aluminum to electronics and consumer goods. China retaliated with tariffs of its own on US imports, including agricultural products, automobiles, and machinery. The tariffs imposed by both sides led to a sharp decline in bilateral trade between the two countries. This decline had a significant impact on businesses and consumers in both countries. In the US, businesses faced higher costs for imported inputs. Consumers saw prices for a range of goods increase, from washing machines to soybeans. Chinese businesses, meanwhile, faced similar challenges, as did Chinese consumers. The trade war also led to trade diversion. This is the rerouting of trade flows away from countries involved in a trade dispute towards other countries. For example, some US importers shifted their sourcing from China to countries like Vietnam and Mexico to avoid the tariffs. Similarly, Chinese importers sought alternative suppliers outside the US. The International Monetary Fund estimated that the US-China trade war had a negative impact on global GDP. While the exact figures are debated, the trade war undoubtedly created uncertainty and disruption in the global economy. The EU's proposed carbon border adjustment mechanism represents a novel approach to using tariffs to address climate change. The CBAM aims to level the playing field between EU companies, which are subject to the EU's emissions trading system, and their competitors in countries with less stringent climate policies. Under the CBAM, importers of certain carbon-intensive products such as steel, cement, and electricity would be required to purchase emission certificates corresponding to the carbon content of their imports. The price of these certificates would be linked to the price of carbon in the EU ETS. Proponents of the CBAM argue that it is necessary to prevent carbon leakage. Carbon leakage occurs when companies relocate their production to countries with weaker environmental regulations to avoid the costs of complying with stricter rules in their home countries. The CBAM is intended to incentivize countries outside the EU to adopt more ambitious climate policies to avoid facing tariffs on their exports to the EU. However, the CBAM has faced criticism from some trading partners, particularly developing countries. They argue that the CBAM could be discriminatory and could harm their economies. These countries often rely heavily on exports of carbon-intensive products. They also tend to have limited capacity to transition to cleaner technologies. The EU has stated that it is committed to designing and implementing the CBAM in a way that is compatible with World Trade Organization rules. However, the legality of the CBAM under international trade law remains a subject of debate. Section 4. India's electronics tariffs seeking self-reliance. India has implemented tariffs on electronics goods such as mobile phones and components as part of its Make in India initiative. The Make in India initiative aims to boost domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on imports. India's tariffs on electronics goods have had a mixed impact. On the one hand, the tariffs have contributed to a growth in domestic production of electronics goods, particularly smartphones. Several major smartphone manufacturers, including Apple and Samsung, have increased their manufacturing capacity in India in recent years. This increase in production has created jobs and boosted economic activity in India. On the other hand, the tariffs have also led to higher prices for consumers of electronics goods in India. Consumers now have to pay more for smartphones, laptops, and other devices. This price increase has disproportionately impacted lower-income consumers who are more sensitive to price changes. Moreover, India's domestic electronics manufacturing industry still faces challenges, such as a lack of a robust supply chain for components. This lack of a domestic supply chain means that Indian manufacturers still rely heavily on imported components. This reliance on imports limits the effectiveness of tariffs in promoting domestic production. Section 5. Navigating the Labyrinth. Understanding the impact of tariffs. Assessing the impact of tariffs requires a nuanced understanding of economic theory and modeling. Economists use various tools to evaluate the effects of tariffs on different stakeholders, including consumers, producers, and the overall economy. One commonly used tool is partial equilibrium analysis. Partial equilibrium models focus on a specific market or industry, isolating the effects of a tariff on that particular sector. For instance, a partial equilibrium model might be used to analyze the impact of a tariff on steel imports on the domestic steel industry. While partial equilibrium models provide valuable insights into the direct effects of tariffs on specific sectors, they fail to capture the broader economy-wide repercussions. Computable general equilibrium (CGE) models address this limitation by simulating the interactions between different sectors of an economy. CGE models allow economists to assess the ripple effects of tariffs throughout the entire economy. Gravity models offer another perspective on the impact of tariffs on international trade. Gravity models, inspired by the laws of physics, posit that trade flows between two countries are directly proportional to the size of their economies and inversely proportional to the distance between them. Tariffs, along with other trade barriers, increase the distance between countries, thereby reducing bilateral trade flows. Each of these economic models provides a different lens through which to view the complex web of cause and effect triggered by tariffs. By considering the insights from these diverse models, policymakers can make more informed decisions about the use of tariffs as a policy tool. Section 6. Beyond tariffs, exploring alternative policy avenues. While tariffs are often seen as a readily available tool for governments to achieve specific economic or political objectives, they are not without their drawbacks. As highlighted in the previous sections, tariffs can lead to higher prices for consumers, distort trade flows, and invite retaliation from trading partners. Consequently, it is crucial to consider alternative policy options that might achieve similar goals without the associated costs of tariffs. One such alternative is the use of subsidies. Governments can provide financial assistance to domestic industries to enhance their competitiveness without directly raising prices for consumers. For example, the CHIPS and Science Act in the United States provides billions of dollars in subsidies and tax credits to support the domestic semiconductor industry. The goal is to reduce reliance on foreign chipmakers, particularly those in Taiwan and South Korea. Another alternative is trade facilitation, which focuses on reducing non-tariff barriers to trade, such as cumbersome customs procedures, opaque regulations, and inadequate infrastructure. Streamlining these processes can significantly reduce the cost of trading, making it easier for businesses to export and import goods. The World Bank estimates that reducing trade costs by just 1% could boost global GDP by over $1 trillion. Multilateral trade agreements offer another avenue for reducing trade barriers and promoting freer trade. Agreements like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, eliminate tariffs and harmonize regulations among member countries, creating a more predictable and open trading environment. Section 7. The Future of Trade Reshoring, Friendshoring, and the Sustainability Imperative. The global trade landscape is undergoing a period of profound transformation. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the vulnerabilities of globally interconnected supply chains, leading to calls for greater resilience and diversification. The resurgence of geopolitical tensions, particularly between the United States and China, has further fueled this trend. Reshoring, the practice of bringing production back to a company's home country, has gained traction in recent years. Proponents of reshoring argue that it reduces reliance on foreign suppliers, creates jobs domestically, and enhances national security. However, reshoring can also lead to higher production costs and potentially trigger a spiral of protectionism if other countries follow suit. Friendshoring represents a more nuanced approach to reshaping global supply chains. It involves prioritizing trade relationships with countries that share similar values and geopolitical interests. The goal is to create a more resilient and trustworthy network of trading partners, reducing dependence on potentially adversarial nations. Furthermore, there is a growing recognition of the need to integrate sustainability considerations into trade policy. The EU's CBAM, despite its controversies, reflects this trend. Climate change, deforestation, and other environmental challenges transcend national borders, requiring coordinated international action. The future of global trade will likely be shaped by the interplay of these various forces, the push for greater resilience, the imperative of sustainability, and the enduring allure of economic nationalism. Navigating this complex landscape will require policymakers to strike a delicate balance between competing priorities, fostering an international trading system that is both open and sustainable.